The story begins with a lone stickman traveler arriving at the edge of the mighty Nile. He gazes in awe at the endless ribbon of water cutting through the golden desert, palm trees bending gently along its banks. To him, it feels almost like magic, a lifeline painted across the sand by unseen hands. The river glitters beneath the hot Egyptian sun, and the stickman kneels down, touching the cool water as if shaking hands with history itself. In this moment, he realizes he is standing at the birthplace of one of humanity's greatest civilizations. The Nile was no ordinary river. Every year it rose from its mysterious southern lands, spilling over its banks, flooding the desert, and then receding, leaving behind soil so rich it seemed alive. Stickman farmers rushed to scatter seeds into the dark earth, knowing that soon green shoots would burst from the ground like nature's promise. For them, the flood wasn't a disaster, it was a blessing, the heartbeat of Egypt itself. Without it, there would be no crops, no bread, no life at all. As villages sprouted along its shores, the stickman narrator wandered into one of the first Egyptian settlements. Mud brick huts lined the riverbank, smoke curling from small fires where families cooked their meals. Children splashed playfully in the shallow waters while goats and donkeys grazed nearby. Life felt simple yet powerful here. Every soul connected to the Nile, every breath tied to the rhythm of its floods. The stickman paused, realizing this fragile community would one day evolve into mighty cities that shaped the world. The Nile was no ordinary river. It was sacred. The stickman watched as a priest raised his arms in reverence, villagers bowing at the water's edge. To them, the river was a god in itself, the giver of life and abundance. Some even whispered that divine beings guided its flow, writing their will into the soil with each flood. Captivated, the stickman scribbled strange symbols in the sand, hieroglyph-like drawings of waves and fish, as if trying to capture the spirit of the river in simple lines. Agriculture flourished, and soon the stickman saw fields stretching far into the horizon. Farmers guided oxen to plow the land, while others harvested baskets of golden wheat. Smiles spread across their faces as they filled granaries with bundles of grain, wealth stored in simple form. Bread became the fuel of Egypt, more valuable than gold because it meant survival. Watching them, the stickman understood how farming had transformed not just the land, but the people, giving them security, power, and ambition. With food came trade. The stickman floated down the Nile on papyrus boats, passing vessels loaded with jars, spices, and fabrics. Villagers gathered at bustling marketplaces where goods exchanged hands, laughter mixing with the sound of animals and music. Here, the Nile wasn't just a river, it was a highway of ideas, connecting people across vast distances. The stickman realized that while the desert isolated Egypt, the river bound it together, shaping it into a kingdom of prosperity. But Egypt was never only about survival. It was about belief. The stickman watched villagers offering baskets of bread and flowers to the gods, hoping to secure another year of bounty. Priests carved symbols into temple walls, their chants echoing as incense rose into the air. The stickman stood silent, sensing the weight of their devotion. For the Egyptians, the line between life and divinity was thin, and every sunrise felt like a conversation with gods that lived just beyond the horizon. Then came the Age of Kings. The stickman witnessed the first pharaoh rising, crowned with gold, holding a staff as a symbol of power. Guards saluted as villagers bowed before him, their loyalty as strong as the stones beneath their feet. The pharaoh wasn't just a ruler, he was the bridge between humans and gods. His authority unquestionable. Watching this figure command the crowd, the Stickman felt both awe and unease. Here, power wasn't shared, it was carved into stone. Temples rose as monuments to the gods and to the power of pharaohs. The Stickman wandered through colossal stone pillars, obelisks pointing skyward like fingers reaching for the sun. Inside, torches flickered against walls carved with stories of gods and kings. The air smelled of incense and mystery, and the Stickman realized temples weren't just places of worship. They were theaters of belief, where every ritual reinforced the divine role of Egypt's leaders. But nothing amazed him more than the pyramids. At first, there were only foundations, blocks being dragged by sweating workers as overseers shouted commands. The Stickman climbed sandy ramps, watching massive stones inch their way upward, transforming the desert into something eternal. These weren't tombs alone. They were promises, monuments to immortality. The Stickman wondered if the people truly believed their kings would live forever inside these mountains of stone. Perhaps, in a way, they already did.
Yet Egypt wasn't built on stone alone. It was built on knowledge. The Stickman met scribes carving hieroglyphs into temple walls, capturing stories and laws for future generations. Children learned to copy symbols on the clay tablets, while artists painted murals of boats, gods, and festivals. The Stickman admired their work, realizing that writing gave Egypt its true immortality. Stones could crumble, but words carved in papyrus and walls could speak across thousands of years. The Stickman gazed at the desert sky, where astronomers tracked stars and priests marked the rising of Sirius. With primitive tools, they aligned temples and pyramids to the heavens, blending science and faith into one. For them, the stars weren't distant suns. They were messages from the gods, guiding when to plant, when to harvest, and when to pray. The Stickman felt the weight of their brilliance, a civilization mapping the sky long before telescopes existed. Life thrived in every corner of Egypt. Markets overflowed with pottery, fabrics, and bread. Families gathered inside mud huts, grinding grain into flour, baking bread over clay ovens. Children laughed, chasing animals through dusty streets. For the Stickman, these small moments carried as much power as the pyramids. They showed how a civilization's greatness was built on ordinary lives lived with purpose and tradition. Trade expanded, and with it came wealth. The Stickman watched bustling harbors with ships docked, unloading spices, jewelry, and exotic goods. Merchants shook hands, scribes recorded deals, and gold flowed through eager hands. Egypt's borders stretched not only through war, but through trade. Its influence carried across waters and deserts alike. The Stickman realized Egypt's true strength wasn't just in armies or pyramids. It was in its ability to connect and exchange with the world. But power breeds conflict. The Stickman stood on battlefields where chariots thundered and soldiers clashed, dust rising into the desert sky. Pharaohs led armies, their spears raised high, claiming lands and defending borders. The Nile that gave life also witnessed blood. Watching, the Stickman understood that empire came at a cost. Every monument, every treasure was built not only with stone, but with sacrifice. Victory brought glory. Stickman soldiers returned with banners waving, treasures filling temples, and pharaohs crowned anew in celebration. Priests declared the gods had blessed Egypt, and crowds roared in approval. But as the Stickman watched gold pile at the feet of kings, he wondered quietly, was this truly divine favor, or just human ambition disguised as destiny? The pharaoh's power was absolute. Seated on golden thrones, he ruled with commands recorded by scribes and enforced by soldiers. Villagers bowed before palace gates, their lives shaped by decisions far beyond their reach. The Stickman, watching from the shadows, saw both greatness and fragility. For what happens when a kingdom builds everything upon the will of one man? Yet Egypt's story wasn't only war and rule, it was music, dance, and healing. The Stickman listened to harps and flutes during festivals by the Nile, watched dancers move under torchlight, and even saw doctors using herbs to heal the sick. This was the softer heart of Egypt, a culture that celebrated beauty as much as power, knowledge as much as faith. It was a reminder that even in mighty civilizations, joy and art made life worth living. As night fell, the Stickman sat by the river, gazing at pyramids glowing beneath starlight. Obelisks cast shadows like eternal guardians, and scrolls of papyrus whispered secrets of kings long gone. Egypt wasn't just a civilization. It was a story written into sand, stone, and sky, a story that refused to fade. And then, as the desert wind shifted, the Stickman turned to the horizon. His journey was not over. With a final glance at the Nile, he stepped into a glowing portal of light, fading into the unknown. Behind him, Egypt stood eternal, its monuments reaching for the stars. Ahead of him, new lands and new histories awaited. Where will he go next? That, dear traveler, is a story for another time.